Hello everyone, hope you're all doing very well. Thank you very much for tuning into today's episode. Today's episode is something that I think we don't really have, we struggle for good information for here in New Zealand especially. Obviously, again, I can't really speak for other countries, but insofar as New Zealand goes, it's something that is challenging and probably not the convenient answer for a lot of people, but it is, I think, really, really important. So, I mean, without dragging this beginning part on too long, we'll jump right into it. But just quickly, if you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. I know it's kind of awkward me asking all the time, but it does very much help out. So yeah, thank you very much, and let's get into today's main topic, eh? If you are new around here, the other thing that we do is while we do these kind of things, I usually just walk around and show you guys the fish for the simple reason that it's more fun to look at. And for this particular episode especially, I don't have anything to show you guys visually, so I'll just talk over it because it'll be fun. So what we're talking about today is Frontosa. If you're not aware what a Frontosa is, I can't put one up on the screen because I don't know how to do that editing wise, but it'll be in the thumbnail, or you can, if you just pause this video and look up Frontosa, Frontosa is how you spell it. And we're going to be talking about a common problem I see with them, particularly in the New Zealand space. So to start with, I'll just give you guys a quick little overview of the Frontosa, just to bring everyone up to speed, and so we're all starting from the same sort of vantage point. Well, not vantage point, but the same space when it comes to Frontosa. So they're from big, slow, beautiful African cichlids from Lake Tanganyika. They live very deep underwater and very obviously dim light down there, because deep underwater, the sun doesn't penetrate that far. So deep underwater, slow, gentle beasts. A lot of people compare them to like the African cichlid equivalent of like a whale or something, because they're slow and lumbering and just hang out and do their thing. And you know, they're not like the mbuna and the peacocks where they're always darting around, always fighting, all that. The Frontosas are much more quiet, much more slow, much more gentle. And they are very... the only real... Like, the best way I can think to describe them is quiet. Like, quiet, lumbering, gentle beasts. And I think, in my opinion, they are probably the coolest... Some of the coolest fish that are around. Like, a big tank with big, happy, fat Frontosas is honestly, you just can't really beat it. There's no real substitute. Nothing really comes close because of that whole thing I just said about them being so, like, you know, similar to whales and that, in the way they kind of lumber around and quietly and gently, like, float about and do their own thing without having to worry about, you know, smashing anything or zipping around or causing a big ruckus or any of that other kind of stuff. They're much more gentle, and I think that is a large part of the appeal with them. However, there is a few problems with them, of course. That's why I'm making this video. The number one problem is they are terrible, horrific, horrendous fish. Like, pretty much some of the worst fish you can choose for those big mixed African tanks, mixed peacock tanks, mixed mbuna tanks, just like Malawi cichlids. Bad option, bad call. It's not going to end well. So, like, if I put a Frontosa in here, what is going to happen is it's going to sit in the corner or in the back, real slow, never going to move, going to get all its fins shredded, just going to be super, super unhappy. Because they are so gentle and peaceful, and these guys are so boisterous and active, they just don't get along well. You will see a lot of times, particularly a lot of, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but a lot of shops is like, oh yeah, African cichlids. Maybe they have the same water parameters. That's true. They do both like a high pH, the Malawi cichlids and the Frontosas from Lake Tanganyika. They'll both like the high pH. They'll both like the harder water. They're both like very similar temperatures, etc. But that's basically where the similarities are gonna pretty much end. If you see, it's not common to see them, but if you see big, lumbering, happy, fat Frontosas, one of the things that's going to stand out is what we call the trailers. So that's on their fins. So get these, it looks like, the best way I can describe it is like big long bits of string, almost like stringiness hanging off their all their fins, their ventral fins, their caudal fins, all this kind of thing. And it is that, honestly, it looks so super duper stunning. But the problem with that is that looks very, very, very tasty if you're an mbuna, if you're a peacock, if you're a hat. That looks like something that I'm going to want to chomp on. And so what we get is they get real shredded down fins, and the unfortunate thing is once they get shredded down, they're not growing back. So oftentimes you'll see them real shredded. The other thing is they're not going to be great sort of aggressive feeders. So you'll see them be very skinny because they just can't compete with a bunch of mixed mbunas, for example. And they're not going to be active because basically, would you be active in that situation? They'll just be terrified for their lives, the poor things. And so you get a lot of real sad, beaten up, shredded, unhappy ones. And I think that really sucks because, I mean, to be honest, it defeats the entire purpose of why you keep a Frontosa. You really don't get the best. You don't even get the medium amount out of them. You get like nothing out of them. They look sad. They are sad. They don't behave normally. They don't look nice. I mean, it just sucks basically. And the biggest sort of problem I find, the part that gets under my skin the most, is there is a fantastic option that would be so much better in that situation that people forget about. The 5-brow Lamprologus is, or what they call them, poor man's Frontosa, is going to do so much better. They don't have all these trailers. They're way more aggressive and will defend themselves and can look after themselves a lot better. They look more or less identical, and they will thrive in that kind of environment. I'm not a massive fan of mixing lakes, but if you're going to do it, Frontosa, terrible option. 5-brow Lamprologus, fantastic option. They will be much, much better, do much, much better, and have a much, much better life, essentially. So that is my one big thing, is I really do not, I cannot condone, well, I don't know how to say it, but keeping Frontosas with mbunas, for example, is a terrible idea. It's not going to end well, and the Frontosas are going to be sad. And the thing is, it's kind of good but kind of bad, is the Frontosas are tough enough where they will survive. They will be alive, they're not going to keel over and die in 5 seconds. But it's to their own detriment. I mean, if a fish is kind of okay and like alive and it's eating enough to sustain itself in that, what you're going to find is a lot of times you'll see like online or on forums or that kind of thing, people are like, oh yeah, well you can do it because I can do it, look at my Frontosas, they're all happy. And if you're not aware of what the usual or expected behaviors are, or you're not maybe keeping as close an eye on it as you maybe want to, they're not going to be happy. So you see people saying that, and then they show you a video, and it's the world's saddest, most like depressed looking Frontosa just sitting in a corner, just like lying on its side, all its fins are nibbled off to bits, and it's not good. So with all that being said, what is the best environment for if you do want to keep a Frontosa? So we're not going to do a full care guide here, I'm just going to go over some of the brief stuff. So in terms of tank size, you definitely want 6 foot, 180 gallons, 180 centimeters plus. You can do smaller for small ones, obviously, but in terms of like long term for big ones, this is the minimum size you want to keep. I know a lot of people will say different, but this is the minimum size you want to keep. You see a big Frontosa like that big, it's going to need a lot of space. A lot of times the Frontosas don't get to grow to that full size because they're not eating properly, they're all sad, feeding up. So in a proper environment, that's the minimum size tank size, I would say. In terms of tank mates, I mean, for what we get in New Zealand, very, very limited. I mean, you can do like the problem is like some of these might get eaten. You have to set the tank up right and ensure that they get along fine. But like Lelupi, Jewelodochroma species, they'll be okay. The Lamprologus calvus and Compressiceps can be okay sometimes, although it can be food sometimes. Synodontis species is a good one, so like your Multipunctatus, for example, will be a good option. Common plecos would be a good option. That any of that kind of stuff, you don't want anything that's even going to think about being aggressive to them. The only, I probably wouldn't do it myself, but the one that I think you can get away with is the blue dolphins. These guys, they are a lot more peaceful, and a big shoal of them tends to be much more inward focused, not going to think about the frontosas. Again, I wouldn't do it. I think you can do it though. Internationally, there's a lot more species, like options, so you can get a lot more like the Cichlids species is like the perfect example. Oh, I did miss, you can do giant danios as well in New Zealand is a good option. Bigger, like dither fish sort of thing, but yeah, Cichlids overseas is the best option, I think, hands down. We're not going to get too deep into the overseas stuff because it doesn't matter. Like, most of you guys are from New Zealand, so we'll focus on that stuff. In terms of the tank setup, you will want gentle flow. You don't want to be bashing them about again for that same reason. They're not going to like it. They're much more slower, gentle things. So like easy on the flow. You want a good amount of like hiding spots in that to make them feel comfortable, and you don't want to do too much light. As we discussed before, being down deep in the water, it's obviously not going to be too bright, so you want low light. The other thing is you want low foot traffic in that area. It does not take much for them to get spooked. So having them, that's why I would have a Frontosa colony in the shop, but that's just going to be too much stress for them. They're not going to be able to deal with the amount of people that come through. Well, I mean, they'll probably deal with it, but like they won't be happy, and it's not the ideal situation for them. So like maybe an office or something, home office might be a good option in terms of space to keep them in. But so in this episode, we've kind of gone over all the bad stuff. But I really want to emphasize, you should, if you have the resources within space, time, money, etc., set up a Frontosa colony. Just get a bunch of Frontosas and like nothing else, and let them do their thing. And honestly, you'll get so much out of it. They are so stunning. Big Frontosas are up there with some of the most beautiful fish in the world. It's fantastic to watch. They are fantastic fish. It's just, you want to see them kept right, and if you have the resources, time, energy, etc. to do it, you should definitely do it, because there's simply like nothing even compares really. You will get so much out of it. So that's all I had today. Make sure you drop down what you think below. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. I'm really looking forward to this one. This is one that's close to my heart, so I'd love to hear it. But other than that, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.